"Ma'am, step away from the gate. You're trespassing," I called out, holding firm as Karen, the HOA president, stood just feet from the entrance to our private ranch, shouting into her phone, "I'm calling 911, this goes against community regulations, so you're definitely hiding something behind those gates." She barked, jabbing a finger at me like I was a misbehaving kid. Folding my arms, I raised an eyebrow. "Karen, you're not authorized to be on this property. This is private land, you know that." She didn't back down. "I'm the president of this neighborhood. I have every right to inspect any home that may be violating our standards." I nearly laughed. "You think being HOA president gives you law enforcement powers?" She turned away from me and continued into her phone. "Yes, Operator, I'd like to report a suspicious man. He's acting aggressively, and I feel unsafe." What Karen didn't realize and what would turn this whole confrontation upside down was that my wife, Elena, had been quietly watching the entire scene unfold from our porch. A veteran detective with over 12 years on the force, she had already grabbed her badge and was walking toward us. Karen had no idea her little emergency call was about to backfire in a big way. And then came the sound of sirens, growing louder as they approached. But before we dive into what happened when the police actually arrived, let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Tyler Hayes. I'm a 41-year-old contractor who moved to this peaceful, ranch-style community hoping to finally enjoy some tranquility and raise a few horses. After years spent constructing homes in the chaos of the city, I figured I'd earned a break, some room to breathe, surrounded by greenery and silence. So I bought a 6-acre ranch just outside Tona, complete with fencing, a front gate, and a long dirt driveway leading to the main house. I had no idea there was a homeowners association when I moved in. That was my first misstep. The moment I pulled in with my truck on move-in day, she came striding across the street, a clipboard in hand, bold red lipstick, and a razor-sharp bob that looked like it could cut glass. "You must be the new resident," she greeted me with a tight, practiced smile. "I'm Karina, the HOA president. You'll need to repaint that fence, remove the satellite dish, and trim those hedges to match community guidelines." I blinked. Hi, I just got here." Without missing a beat, she handed me a 16-page pamphlet. "This is your welcome packet. The HOA board meets the second Tuesday of every month. We'll be keeping an eye on things." At the time, I thought she was just overly enthusiastic. I didn't yet understand she was more like a high-heeled tyrant running the neighborhood with an iron clipboard. My wife Elena wasn't around that day. She'd just taken on a new undercover assignment downtown, and with her demanding schedule, she was away most weekdays. But she was just as thrilled about the move as I was. We both craved a slower pace, especially after her last 2 cases had taken a serious emotional toll. The ranch was supposed to be a place for both of us to heal and reset. For the first few weeks, things seemed fine. We kept a low profile, unpacked boxes, cleared out the barn, and I even started a vegetable garden. But Karen kept reappearing. Sometimes she'd bring written warnings, other times unsolicited advice. Once, she even showed up with a tape measure, checking if our front gate was too tall. "She's obsessed," I told Elena one night while we sat on the porch. "She's drunk on power," Elena replied, sipping her wine. "If she doesn't back off, I can file a restraining order." I chuckled. "You're always ready to go full detective," Elena smirked. Occupational hazard. Despite the constant annoyances, I tried to give Karen the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just lonely, maybe her behavior came from boredom. So, one Saturday, I invited her over for lemonade. Huge mistake. She arrived with her trusty clipboard, measured our shed, and informed me that my work truck wasn't allowed in the driveway because, according to her, it ruins the street view. HOA Rule 3.4.6, she declared proudly. "My wife parks her police cruiser there when she's home." I responded, "That a problem too?" She hesitated. "Law enforcement vehicles are a special case." I could tell she hated being challenged. I let her leave without another word, but that's when things escalated. She started pacing past our property slowly, snapping pictures of our fence, even trying to peer into our barn. That's when I decided to install security cameras. And then came the day she crossed the line. It was a Saturday morning. I was in the stables brushing down one of the horses. Elena was inside, working on a police training module online. I heard a vehicle pull up. When I peeked outside, there she was, Karina at the gate again, this time with another man. He looked like either a handyman or some kind of inspector. They were pointing at the fence and scanning the field like they were plotting something. I walked up. Need something? Karen crossed her arms. Yes, actually, this is Sam. He's with the HOA Enforcement Committee. We're conducting an unannounced inspection. There's no such thing, I said flatly. You don't have the authority to be here. It's in the HOA charter, she insisted. I shook my head. No, it's not. You're bordering on trespassing. You need to leave. That's when she whipped out her phone and dialed 911. This man is threatening me, she said dramatically. He's preventing us from inspecting his property. I think he's hiding something. I fear for my safety. I was floored, absolutely stunned. She actually claimed to fear for her life. He dressed in pearls and flats, waving a clipboard, standing on my property line. But she had no idea she just made a serious mistake. My wife stepped out onto the porch in her sweatpants, coffee in hand, her badge hanging on a lanyard around her neck. Elena, don't, I said under my breath, but she was already heading toward us. She pulled out her phone and started recording. Karen didn't notice until Elena was right in front of her. Elena Hayes, City Detective via badge number 62841, she said calmly. I just recorded everything you told 911. That's a false police report. Karen's expression dropped instantly. Before anyone could speak again, we heard sirens screaming toward us down the gravel road. Karen stumbled back, putting on a show of fear. Officers, there he is. Arrest him. Elena raised her badge. Let's see what they say when they find out you just made a false report about a cop's husband on private property. Karen froze as the first patrol car rolled around the corner. Where are you watching from? Because trust me, this was only the beginning. She had no clue the storm she had just stepped into. And just when we thought the situation couldn't spiral further, one of the officers who stepped out of the cruiser turned out to be someone Elena had arrested years ago. He recognized her instantly, and what came out of his mouth shifted everything. If you want to know how it all unfolds, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The moment that officer exited the vehicle, I caught the way Elena's eyes narrowed. Detective Hayes? He asked, visibly taken aback. Elena gave a calm nod, her badge still hanging clearly from her neck. Afternoon, Officer Daniels. He looked from Elena to me, then to Karina, who suddenly broke into full theatrical meltdown mode like she was auditioning for a daytime drama. She's lying. She's protecting him. They're hiding something back there. He was aggressive. I feared for my safety. Daniels barely gave her a glance. You're Karen Simmons, correct? He asked. Dispatch has noted over 20 calls from your number in the last 6 months. All about neighbors. All unfounded. Karen's jaw dropped. Excuse me? Over 20, Daniels repeated, each one about some minor complaint that never held up. I tried hard not to laugh, but Karen wasn't done putting on a show. She spun toward the second officer stepping out of the next cruiser. Don't just stand there, he threatened me. And she's trying to scare me with some fake badge. Arrest them. Daniels exchanged a look with his partner, then turned back to Elena. Ma'am, can you clarify your position again? Elena stepped forward, voice firm but even. Detective Elena Hayes. 12 years with the city police department. I'm off duty today, but still licensed and active. That woman trespassed onto my property, brought an unauthorized person with her, and then placed a false 911 call claiming she feared for her life. Daniels slowly jotted notes on his pad. The second officer, Claire, stepped up beside Karen. Do you have any legal basis to be on this property? Claire asked. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it again. Well, the HOA guidelines say I can inspect a HOA. Rules are not state law, Claire interrupted. They don't trump private property rights or the Fourth Amendment. This land is clearly marked with no trespassing signs, so you are not authorized to be here. Karen's face turned a bright, flustered red. But he's clearly hiding something. Why else wouldn't he let me in? Because I don't want a nosy neighbor with a superiority complex sneaking around my barn, I said, not bothering to sugarcoat it. It's called having boundaries, Karen. Daniels looked at Elena. You said you recorded the incident? Elena raised her phone, both audio and video. He nodded, visibly relieved. That's excellent. It'll be very helpful. Karen's tone immediately flipped. Wait, we can talk this out, right? It was just a misunderstanding. But it wasn't, and Daniels knew it. He glanced toward Sam, the man Karen had brought with her for the so-called inspection. Sir, what's your involvement here? Sam looked uneasy. She told me she had permission to inspect the shed. Said it was an home matter about non-standard roofing. I didn't realize I was doing anything wrong. Claire raised an eyebrow. You're not with the city, are you? No, ma'am, he replied. I'm just a private contractor. She gave me $50 to walk the fence line with her. Said she'd report me to my union if I refused. Daniels sighed. That's coercion and trespassing. Not on your part, he added quickly, but hers. Karen's hands were trembling now. This is all being exaggerated. I was just fulfilling my responsibilities. Daniels leaned over and whispered something to Claire, who nodded. Then he turned to Elena. We'll need to review your footage, detective. After that, we'll proceed with a formal report. Karen took a step forward. You can't do this. I am the president of this community. Not for much longer, Elena said coldly. And maybe soon a defendant, too. Then, things took an unexpected turn. Officer Claire stepped away to take a call. When she returned, her face had shifted. That was the district office, she said. Apparently, Karen also filed a complaint against animal control. Claimed the Hayeses were harboring unregistered exotic animals. I blinked. What? We've got horses and 2 goats. Elena crossed her arms. She's been concocting a case in her mind this whole time. Karen muttered, backing up. It's all a setup, a conspiracy. She's a copess. She's abusing her authority. You're the one who called the police, I reminded her, and lied to them, Daniels added, which is a criminal offense. Karen's shoulders slumped in defeat. It was just a misunderstanding. We'll be issuing a trespassing citation, Daniels said, and referring the false report to the county attorney. But before they could escort her to the vehicle, Karen did something completely unexpected. She ran. She spun around and bolted down the dirt road toward her car, heels kicking up dust like a cartoon villain on the run. Officer Claire reacted instantly. Ma'am, stop. Elena didn't hesitate. She cut across the side of the barn, intercepting Karen halfway with a single firm word. Freeze. Karen skidded to a halt. Elena calmly walked up, cuffed her, and said, You're under arrest for filing a false report and trespassing on private property. Just like that, Karen Simmons, the self-declared queen of the HOA, was escorted to the back of a patrol car in handcuffs. But the story didn't end there. That evening, as Elena and I sat on the porch sipping lemonade, an email from the HOA board came through. Karen had filed multiple violation reports against me over the last month, some even with photos taken at odd hours. But it wasn't just written complaints. There were videos, footage shot from inside my barn. That's when it hit me. Karen had been on our property more than once, and I hadn't even known it. Elena stood up slowly. Here Elena's tone dropped as her detective instincts took over. She's been spying on us, she said quietly. And if she recorded anything inside our home without consent, this is more than just trespassing. We're talking criminal charges. That same night, Elena launched a full-blown investigation. What we uncovered in the days that followed shook the entire neighborhood. Karen wasn't just a nosy neighbor, she was a threat. She had been compiling files, logs, and recordings on nearly every resident in the community. One file stood out, labeled Operation Clean Sweep, and right at the top of the list, our names. If you want to know what Karen had planned in this so-called operation and how Elena unraveled the whole thing, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Elena didn't sleep that night. When my wife stays up, it usually means someone's about to regret it. By sunrise, our kitchen looked like a mini investigation bureau. Her laptop was open, badge sitting beside it, and the table was littered with papers, printouts, flash drives, and notes, all arranged with meticulous detail. I refilled her coffee and asked, What exactly is a Operation Clean Sweep supposed to be? Without glancing up, she replied, It means Karen wasn't doing this alone. I raised an eyebrow. Come again? She finally looked at me, her eyes razor sharp. This wasn't just her targeting us. She had detailed surveillance on 9 different families, drone video, audio recordings, notes about their routines. Some of the files were labeled Phase 2. My jaw tightened. This isn't an HOA dispute anymore. This is stalking. Elena nodded grimly. And there's more. Look. She turned her laptop toward me. It was video footage from the barn cam I had installed weeks ago. Elena had enhanced and zoomed in, and there they were, Karen and a man I didn't recognize, slipping into our back paddock under the cover of night. My stomach dropped. When was this? 3 weeks ago, she replied. We were out to dinner downtown. That's why it went unnoticed. The cameras didn't pick it up at first. They knew the blind spots, she said. But the angle you added last week caught the edge of them sneaking in. I stood abruptly. They went into our barn. If that's breaking and entering. Elena was already writing up her notes. And criminal trespass. I have enough now to open a formal case, but I want to go slow and methodical. If Karen isn't working alone, we need to flush out whoever else is involved. Later that day, the HOA board finally responded to our earlier report. Their reply claimed Karen had acted on her own and that the association did not support or authorize any illegal actions. But something about the email was off, cold, too carefully worded. They're trying to distance themselves, Elena muttered, reading over the message. But they're not denying they knew. That afternoon, we visited Mr. Connors, a quiet older gentleman who lived a few blocks over. He was a longtime board member, always kept to himself. When we knocked on his door, he answered with visible anxiety. Tile a broken bar. Elena, a broken bar. I figured you might come. Elena wasted no time. Mr. Connors, what is Operation Clean Sweep? He didn't deny it. His face went pale. He stepped aside and motioned us in. It was Karen's idea, he said in a whisper. After the Johnsons refused to repaint their mailbox, she started talking about taking the neighborhood back. Her words. She had this whole plan to drive out anyone who didn't meet her standards. I leaned in. Drive them out how? Connors wiped his brow. She talked about making up complaints, building paper trails, a broken bar, faking enough issues to make people look like a problem. If they didn't cooperate, she said she'd call in the authorities to scare them. Elena's voice turned ice cold. That's exactly what she tried on us. He nodded. She had spreadsheets, names, pictures, notes. It was all very organized. Elena pulled out a screenshot we'd printed earlier. Is this one of the files you saw? He looked at it and nodded again. Yes, that's the one. Who else knew? I asked. His hands trembled slightly. At first, it was just her, but she confided in me, and I think she told Marka and Blake too. They're also on the board. Did they help her? Elena asked sharply. Yeah, broken bar, I don't know, but they definitely didn't stop her. We thanked him and left. Elena stayed silent during the walk back to the house. As we stepped onto the porch, she finally spoke. She created a shadow system of control and no one intervened. I frowned. So how do we expose this without it getting buried? That's when I saw that fire in her eyes again. The detective spark. We don't just report it, she said. We make it undeniable. That evening, Elena compiled everything: interviews, video evidence, HOA documents, timestamps. She organized it all into a secure digital file, complete with a timeline and labeled exhibits. Then, she set it up for automatic release. What's that for? I asked. In case anything happens to us, she replied calmly. My blood ran cold. You really think it's that serious? She nodded. People like Karen don't go quietly. And if she has others helping her, we can't take any risks. Just then, my phone buzzed. I picked it up and stared. No name, no number, just one chilling sentence. Stop digging or you'll regret it. I turned the screen to Elena. You need to see this. She scanned the message and then looked up at me. They know. They're watching us, I whispered. Before she could respond, our front security system pinged. Motion detected. We turned to the monitor. There was a figure in a hoodie, standing just outside the fence line, watching, then walking away. In their hand, they held a small black drone controller. Elena didn't hesitate. She grabbed her badge, flashlight, and service weapon. I'm going after them. Elena, wait, I called, rushing after her, but she was already halfway down the drive, flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. I followed, heart pounding, light in hand. As we reached the fence, we followed the fresh prints through the grass, still damp from the night air. leading toward the creek behind our property. "Elena," I called again. No response, just the rhythmic chirping of crickets. "Elena." Gunshots. 1, 2, cracking through the silence like lightning. My heart seized. "Elena." I bolted toward the sound, crashing through brush and low branches, my breathing ragged and wild. And then I found her. She was crouched behind a tree, gun drawn, her arm streaked with blood. Just ahead in a clearing lay a man dressed in black, motionless, a drone bag next to him. But what froze me in place wasn't just the scene, it was the paper taped to the drone bag, official whole letterhead, with a list of addresses. Ours was circled in red ink. I sprinted to Elena, hard hammering. She was low to the ground, weapon steady, blood dripping from a shallow wound on her forearm, but alive. "Thank God, Elena," I breathed, dropping to my knees beside her. "You're bleeding." She nodded, teeth clenched. "It's just a graze." When he reached into the drone bag, I thought he was going for a weapon. I fired and hit him in the leg. I glanced over. The man was stirring, groaning, alive, but down. Then my eyes went back to the drone bag and that ominous paper, whole letterhead, a list of neighborhood addresses. Ours in red, Connor's in yellow. "Elena." "A broken bar," I said carefully. "This isn't just surveillance. This is a coordinated operation." She gave a firm nod, clutching her arm. They were escalating. Intimidation tactics. A broken bar may be worse. In the distance, sirens wailed again. Elena had called for backup while I'd been running to her. Within minutes, 2 cruisers and an ambulance pulled up. Paramedics rushed to Elena. Officers restrained the suspect, who treated unconvincingly to play unconscious. One of the responding officers was Lieutenant Harris, someone Elena had mentored years ago. When he saw her, his expression shifted. "Elena, what the hell happened out here?" She calmly laid it all out: of Karen's false reports, the harassment, the drone surveillance, and now the ambush. Harris looked stunned. "This isn't just hoe drama, a broken bar. This is organized surveillance and assault. More like domestic espionage," I muttered. Officers began to search the man. No wallet, no ID, just a burner phone and a drone bag loaded with gear. Inside, a modified surveillance drone equipped with infrared night vision, a long-range microphone, and GPS trackers. "Get a full data dump," Harris ordered his tech team. The SD card revealed Itala recordings of our barn, Connor's place, a broken bar, even video of Elena inside our home, footage of our bedroom lights turning off at night. The room fell into stunned silence as the clips played. One officer finally broke it. "They've been watching for months. A broken bar." Elena's jaw clenched. "We need to warn Connors. He's next." The next morning, still bandaged and bruised, we made our way to Connor's house. He was waiting at the door, pale and anxious. "I saw the cruisers," he said quietly. "Is it true? Did Karen really send someone after you?" Elena gave a grim nod. "Not just us. Your name was on the list too." His face went slack. He leaned against the doorway, stunned. "I thought she was just obsessive. I didn't think it would turn violent." "She named it Operation Clean Sweep for a reason," I said quietly. "It wasn't about rules, it was about removing anyone she didn't like." He stepped aside and motioned for us to come in. The living room was cluttered but lived in. He pulled a dusty box from under a shelf and set it down. "You need to see this," he said. Inside were documents, USB drives, home meeting minutes, a broken bar, and a small voice recorder. "I found it in a folder after one of our board meetings last year," he said. "I didn't think it meant anything at the time. Now a broken bar, I'm not so sure." Elena connected the recorder to her laptop and hit play. Karen's voice crackled through the speaker. "They won't leave on their own, so we push them. If they comply, great. If not, we keep reporting. And if there's nothing to report, we make something up. I have connections. No one wants cops living here anyway. They ruin the balance." Then came a second voice, "A man's. Once we get rid of the detective and her husband, the rest will fall in line." Elena paused the recording, her hand visibly shaking. "That wasn't just Karen. She had help." Connors nodded slowly. "That voice, a broken bar, I think it was Blake. He's the HO treasurer." "The same Blake who wrote most of the violations?" I asked. "Yes," Connors said. "Even the ones Karen signed. I think he's the one who brought in the guy with the drone." That afternoon, Elena filed a full case with the city PTA complete with evidence from Connors and all the drone footage. A warrant was issued for Blake's arrest within hours, but when officers arrived at his house, he was gone. Vanished. That night, as Elena and I sat on the porch wrapped in bandages, exhausted and overwhelmed, a package was delivered. No name, no return address. Inside, a single flash drive. Elena plugged it into her laptop. A video played. Footage of our own living room. From inside, my heart froze. She paused and rewound. This wasn't from the drone. A broken bar. Her eyes scanned the room. Then she stood and moved toward the bookshelf. She leaned in, inspecting a decorative vase, then slowly lifted it. Beneath it was a pinhole camera. Blake was inside our home, she whispered. But how? I asked. We never leave the doors open. She turned to me slowly. Last week the guy from the water company, a broken bar, said he needed to check the meter. My eyes widened. Yeah, I let him in for like 5 minutes. A broken bar. Elena exhaled sharply. What if that wasn't the water company? She didn't wait for my answer. She was already dialing dispatch. And I stood there, chilled to my core, staring at the vase, wondering how far this conspiracy really went. We both stood in the living room, scanning every corner like strangers in our own home. The sense of safety we once had now completely shattered. Just as Elena ended the call with dispatch, her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. No contact info. No number. Just 5 chilling words. You're not done yet. Watch your barn tonight. We stared at each other. Then our eyes drifted to the window, where the last light of day was fading behind the barn. The shadows stretched long across the field, and with them came a silence that felt far from natural. We didn't know what was coming, but we were done waiting. This time, we were going on the offensive. That night, the barn felt tense, still, like it knew what was about to happen. Elena said very little as we geared up flashlights, radios, her body cam, and a few wireless night vision units she'd borrowed from her precinct. She wasn't waiting on red tape anymore. This wasn't just surveillance. This was a sting. We've got one shot at this, she said, attaching the camera to her jacket. If they're coming back, we need to catch them in the act. I nodded, heart pounding in my chest. What if it's Blake? I hope it's Blake, she muttered. Because if it's not, this goes deeper than we imagined. We set up 3 hidden cameras, one above the loft, one near the center aisle of the barn, and another covering the rear entrance. Then we waited in the shadows behind the hay bales, our breath slow, every creak of the wind outside sharpening our nerves. At exactly 11:47 p.m., we heard it. Footsteps. Elena lifted her hand for silence. Soft crunching across the gravel outside a broken bar. Then a figure emerged through the barn's side door, dressed in dark clothes, gloved hands clutching something metal, a canister. My eyes went wide. Gasoline. Elena didn't hesitate. She flipped the overhead lights on, stepped out with her weapon raised. Freeze. Hands where I can see them. The figure jumped back, dropping the gas can. He turned to flee, but I blocked the only exit. He pivoted again only to find Officer Daniels and 2 other officers rushing in from the back. We'd asked them to wait off-site earlier, just in case. The suspect froze. They pulled back his hood and the entire barn fell silent. It wasn't Blake. It was Sam, the same contractor Karen had brought around during her so-called inspection. Elena stepped forward, cold as ice. You again? Sam looked panicked, like a rat caught in a trap. Yeah, I didn't mean to. She paid me. You came here with gasoline, I snapped. You were going to burn our barn down. It was just supposed to scare you, he cried. Karen said if you moved out quietly, they'd stop. Daniels cuffed him and began reading his rights. Elena leaned in close, her voice low and sharp. You're going to tell me everything. And he did. Sam admitted it had been in motion for over a year. Karen and Blake had coordinated a quiet campaign, but when Elena moved in, a decorated detective with a reputation for rooting out corruption, they panicked. Blake, it turned out, wasn't just the HO treasurer. He had a sealed record of embezzlement from a former HO, covered up by a legal technicality. Karen was his mouthpiece, the concerned citizen face to mask his agenda. They targeted vulnerable neighbors, single parents, minorities, retirees, anyone who didn't fit their version of perfection. Sam had been paid to install hidden cameras and intimidate. But when Elena started asking questions, Karen told him to escalate. She said if you two weren't gone by the end of the month, Sam whispered, she'd take care of it. Her way. Elena's eyes burned. Where is Blake now? Sam hesitated. There's a cab and a broken bar up in Grand Pine Woods. Said he was laying low. He's got files there. Backups. By sunrise. We had a warrant. By noon, we were deep in the forest. Elena, me, Daniels, and 2 detectives stood outside a weathered, hidden cabin. No mailbox. No visible address. But when we broke the lock and stepped inside, we knew we'd found the hub. Boxes labeled HOA projects. Stacks of cash in envelopes. Hard drives. Photos of neighbors' homes. License plate logs. Even a blueprint of our property. Elena opened a folder labeled Final Phase. Her hands trembled slightly. Inside was a checklist. Frame for animal abuse. False police reports. Fake neighborhood petition. Fire damage. Eviction paperwork. Sell to approved buyer. They were trying to erase us, I muttered. She nodded. And take control of our land. Daniels broke into a locked metal cabinet and uncovered the worst of it: pre-filled complaint forms, forged signatures from neighbors, even an unsigned restraining order against Elena, a broken bar in her own name. They were setting me up, she whispered, to get me fired. The next morning, headlines exploded. Detective uncovers suburban conspiracy. HOA corruption exposed in local neighborhood. Blake was arrested later that day at a bus station outside the city. Sam flipped and testified. Karen, already facing charges, was now looking at conspiracy, stalking, and attempted arson. Neighbors came forward, many with apologies. Some had suspected, others had received anonymous threats. Most had stayed quiet out of fear. Elena didn't ask for their sympathy, but she did speak to a local reporter. People like Karen and Blake don't scream when they abuse power. They file it. They frame it in policy. They make it look like order when it's really control. But justice isn't paperwork, it's truth. That night, for the first time in weeks, the ranch was still. No drones, no strange shadows, no Karen. Until 2:04 a.m., the doorbell rang. We checked the camera feed. No one there. Just a single note, taped to the door. You may have won this round, detective, but there are more of us. Elena stared at it, then slowly backed inside. Locked the door. Looks like this wasn't over. The sun rose on the ranch the next morning, but that soft golden light didn't bring calm. It brought a warning. You may have won this round, detective, but there are more of us. Elena read the note again and again, her expression unreadable. She didn't say much, but I recognized that look. It was the same one she'd worn years ago when her partner went deep undercover a broken bar and never came back. Focused, cold, determined. They're warning us, I finally said, my coffee now cold in my hands. No, she replied quietly, eyes still fixed on the paper. They're testing us, seeing if we'll back off. And a broken bar are we? She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed her laptop and started typing, fingers flying like she was chasing something just out of reach. What are you doing? Cross-referencing HOA complaints from across the county. Looking for patterns. You think this isn't just our HOA? She turned the screen toward me, a sprawling spreadsheet filled with property disputes, surprise evictions, sudden buyouts, and suspicious fires, all in the past 18 months. She pointed to one row, Crescent Hills, 5 evictions in 6 months. All properties purchased by the same Goldcroft development. Another row, Maple Ridge. A teacher and her elderly mom fined $15,000 for lawn violations. Lost their home, bought by Goldcroft. My stomach sank. You think Karen and Blake were just the front? No, Elena said, her voice sharper now. I think they were part of something much larger, and we just yanked the first thread. That afternoon, Elena made a call to her former partner, Detective Marcus Shaw, now working internal affairs. He arrived on our porch in plain clothes, holding a thick manila folder. You weren't wrong, he said, sitting down. I've been digging into Goldcroft quietly for months. They've snapped up over 120 properties. Almost all were preceded by aggressive HOA action, cases that vanished or were quietly closed. Who's behind them? Elena asked. Shaw sighed. Goldcroft's just a shell, but the funding traces back to a man named Leonard Vexler. The name made Elena go still. Vexler, as in the Leonard Vexler who ran for city council last year? The same. Before that, he chaired 3 separate HOAs across the state, resigned from each right before lawsuits were filed. You think he's connected to Karen and Blake? I asked. Shaw nodded. More than that, I think he trained them. Elena leaned in. Then we need proof, not suspicion. Something solid. I've got a start, Shaw said, pulling out a flash drive. Surveillance from 2 years ago. Vexler meeting with multiple HOA board members. No formal records. No reports filed. Blake was there. That night, Elena and Shaw started building a timeline of links between people, places, finances, and shady HOA dealings. On paper, Vexler looked clean. No charges, no obvious ties, just subtle, calculated influence. But what Vexler didn't count on, Karina now in jail, isolated, under pressure, and Elena knew how to break through her silence. I want to talk to her, she said suddenly. Shaw raised a brow. You think she'll cooperate? She sees herself as the victim. All we have to do is let her believe that. The next morning, Elena walked into the county jail, badge on display. Karen was already seated in the interview room in unkempt, pale, bloodshot eyes, nerves unraveling. Elena, she rasped. Here to gloat? No, Elena said calmly. I'm here to offer you a deal. Karen laughed, bitter and hollow. A deal? I don't need your charity. No, Elena said coolly, but if you want to cut your sentence in half, tell me what you know about Leonard Vexler. That got her attention. You a broken bar know about Vexler? We know he trained Blake. We know he funds the takeovers. We know he was at the cabin. What we don't have is the proof linking you to him. Karen's mask faltered. You think I wanted this? He came to me after my divorce, promised I could take back control of my life, said we were building a better neighborhood. I didn't know it would go this far. But you stayed, Elena said, voice hard. I thought we were doing the right thing. Karen cried. He said we were keeping out the undesirables, protecting our kind of people. Elena's expression turned cold. And what kind is that, Karen? Karen didn't answer. Elena stood. You've got 48 hours. After that, you're no pawn, you're the ringleader. As she turned to leave, Karen's voice cracked behind her. You won't beat him. He won't let you. Elena didn't look back. He won't have a choice. That night, the final piece clicked into place. Shaw called. You're going to want to hear this. Karen's whole emails were just unsealed. One of them includes an invite to Broken Bar to a private whole leadership summit, hosted by Leonard Vexler. Elena's name was on the guest list. What? I said. How? Blake had it her months ago, Shaw replied. Probably to keep her closey up before everything unraveled. Elena's eyes narrowed. Then I'm going. Undercover? I asked. She nodded. If Vexler's there, I'll get him on tape. But what if they recognize you? I asked. She stared at me with a resolve that sent chills down my spine. They already know who I am. That's the point. I want them to. Later that night, another package arrived. No note, no name, just a photo. Elena and me on our porch, smiling, relaxed, coffee in hand. Across the bottom in thick black marker, see you at the summit. The day of the summit arrived. Elena stood in front of the mirror in a tailored charcoal blazer, her badge concealed, a hidden mix stitched beneath the lapel, her face calm, composed. But I saw the storm in her eyes. 12 years as a detective had trained her for pressure, but nothing like this. And yet, I had never seen her more ready. This wasn't just a stakeout, it was a walk straight into the lion's den. You sure you're ready for this? I asked. Elena didn't even blink. I've never been more ready, she said, double-checking her earpiece. Shaw had arranged backup with 3 internal affairs agents embedded inside the summit, each operating under a false identity. Meanwhile, I was stationed in a surveillance van nearby, eyes glued to a monitor as Elena's hidden lapel cam streamed the entire event in real time. The summit was held at an exclusive, secluded resort near the state border, neutral ground, far from public oversight. Officially, it was billed as the Westwood HOA Development Conference, but we knew what it really was, a recruiting ground for organized corruption. The room was filled with nearly 50 people, HOA presidents, treasurers, developers, realtors. Elena recognized some from her research. Others were new to her, which made it even more disturbing. And there, at the front of the room, stood the man we'd been chasing, Leonard Vexler. Polished, powerful, with a gleaming smile and a tailored navy suit, He looked more like a corporate executive than a criminal, but the moment he stepped up to the podium, the room hushed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said with smooth charisma, "thank you for being bold enough to be here. We're not just managing HOA, we're shaping the future. We're restoring order." Elena kept her gaze steady, face neutral. I could hear her measured breathing through the comms. Vexler kept going. "We all know the type of homeowner who brings down a community. The ones who lower values, attract crime, disrupt harmony. Our mission is simple: clean neighborhoods, clean paperwork, clean exits. We protect each other." A wave of applause followed. Then his eyes locked onto Elena. "We've got a new face with us. I see. Would you mind standing up?" My heart skipped a beat, but Elena rose without hesitation. "Elena Hayes," she said confidently, "HOA compliance consultant for West Creek Ranch." Vexler's grin widened. "Fantastic. Just the kind of firm leadership we need. Welcome. And remember, once you're with us, you're protected." Elena sat back down and tapped her thigh 3 times. "SR signal. Confirmation." Vexler was the ringleader. Shaw's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Copy that. We're greenlit." Now we waited for the moment. After the keynote, the crowd broke into smaller strategy sessions. Elena was ushered into a closed-door round table. Her camera stayed on. I watched in horrified silence as documents were passed around, pre-filled violation notices, fake complaint templates, even scripts for calling emergency services with bogus threats, sample petitions, eviction drafts. All legal tools turned into weapons. Then Vexler dropped a thick binder onto the table. Across the cover, Phase 4 expansion: A metro suburbs. "We'll begin targeting these neighborhoods next quarter," he said, almost casually. "Replace the existing HOA boards. Pressure them into resigning or dig up leverage. You know the drill." He flipped a page. Elena's name was listed. So was mine. Target: Hayes residence. A remaining obstacle. She didn't react outwardly, but I could feel her fury through the silence. Vexler leaned forward. "We came close to removing them. Karen got sloppy. But that's okay. There are always other ways." "What do you mean?" Elena asked, voice calm. "Simple," he said, sipping tea. "Fire code violations. Anonymous tips. We squeeze. They break. Then we buy them out at half value. And if they resist, well, things happen." That was it. The line we needed. Elena pressed the silent alert. 30 seconds later, chaos erupted. Shaw and the undercover agents burst into the room, badges out. "Leonard Vexler, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, intimidation, and racketeering." Vexler didn't flinch. "You think this ends with me?" Elena stepped forward, flashing her badge. "No," she said. "It starts with you." The room imploded. A panic, shouting, board members trying to escape, agents confiscating phones, flash drives, everything. And in the middle of it all stood Elena, steady, silent, victorious. News broke within hours. Massive HOA corruption ring exposed. Local detective infiltrates illegal real estate conspiracy. Karen took a plea deal at 3 years in exchange for her testimony. Blake got 5. Sam entered witness protection. But Vexler, 25 to life. I held Elena's hand in the courtroom as the judge read the sentence. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. But the way she squeezed back, I knew. Justice had finally caught up. 3 months later, life at the ranch had returned to normal. No more drones. No more strange cars. No more threats. The old HOA was dissolved. A new community council elected by the residents took its place. One golden evening, Elena and I sat on our porch, watching the wind ripple through the tall grass. "You saved this place," I told her. She smiled. "We did." "You think it's over?" She paused, thoughtful. Then that old spark lit her eyes. "For now." Then she smirked. "But if anyone tries again a broken bar, they'll learn real fast not to mess with the detective's home." I laughed, because by now everyone knew. You don't break into a ranch a broken bar when the wife is a detective. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of justice, wild neighborhood drama, and HOA takedowns. What would you do if someone like Karen tried this in your neighborhood? Tell us in the comments.